Hello, everybody. My name is Madan Mohun from Your Story. And on behalf of all of us at Your Story, welcome to session 3 of Build and Grow Money Matters. This is a series dedicated to helping businesses go beyond financial management to achieve financial growth, resilience, and innovation. As businesses continue to revive and pivot to newer models in these tough times, Your Story is proud to partner with HSBC for another season of inspiring conversations, insights, and observations. We feature some of the newest trendsetters in business and stalwarts of the ecosystem to help businesses power their next phase of growth and business continuity. Today, we have with us Abhishek Agarwal, founder of Purple Style Labs, a Mumbai based premium fashion house. It aims to bring together India's top designers under one platform. Abhishek is an alumnus of IIT Bombay. He worked with Deutsche Bank before this, and he founded Purple Style Labs in 2015. Welcome aboard, Abhishek.
Thanks, Madam. Thanks, Your Story team, for having me here.
Great. We got a lot of questions for you, so let's get started. You began
Sure.
your company in 2015 and you were backed by prominent investors and family offices such as Binny Bansal, Raj Soin, Navroz Udwadia, and Astark Ventures, among others. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got started, and how you've come to where you are today?
As you told about my background, so I am by education an aerospace engineer. I have nothing to do with fashion. Uh, I joined Deutsche out of college. I used to be an exotic derivative structurer for Deutsche for 3 years. I used to work for global markets, so used to be a purely a numbers guy. I think the business gene kind of comes from my family background. So my family, based out of eastern side of India, has been into consumer businesses, especially for a very long time now. And that's how I always thought I will do something on my own. Why I picked fashion and why I picked Purple Style Labs and started in 2015. I think I am one of those rare engineers who likes to dress. So I'm not wearing a suit just for our talk today. I generally like wearing suits. And I had an inclination towards the premium luxury bit of the business. So when it came around, starting something in the consumer space, I thought, why not pick fashion and pick premium luxury fashion? And it was very different from what, a typical, engineer entrepreneur would look to do. You don't expect them to do something like this. And it caught attention of a lot of, known investors. We have been backed mostly by, individuals and high net worth individuals who have believed in the vision, and it's been a great journey so far for the last 6 years.
As early as 2015, it was assumed that the premium fashion shopping experience would be exclusive to brick and mortar boutiques. What was the opportunity you saw when you founded Purple Style Labs?
So for us, it was never about the channel as such, Madan, as to do with the opportunity around the brand equity. Right from the inception of the company, the vision was to build India's luxury fashion house, where we translate a lot of these luxury designer brands who have built brand equity over a period of time, but have not translated them into large businesses, unlike in the West. So that was the primary vision of the company right from the beginning. So for first 3 years of the company, I used to work with relatively smaller brands, helping them, on multiple things like e-commerce, different digital operation side, etc., etc. But then to take over a larger scheme of things, the idea was we will have to get into a multi-brand platform model where we can distribute a lot of these designer brands together to the customer on a single platform. And that's how the Pernia's pop-up shop acquisition came into play.
Thanks, Abhishek. You acquired, as you mentioned, Pernia's pop-up shop in 2019. What were some of the learnings from that acquisition and some of the other ones that followed?
So we, as I said, realized that there are not enough multi-brand platforms on the luxury side which can help scaling smaller brand aggressively fast. So prior to acquisition of Pernia's pop-up shop, we were looking to build our own multi-brand platform. Just so happened that in 2018, when we were exploring to create an online-offline platform, we picked up Pernia's pop-up shop. So I give this analogy, a lot of other places as well. So like how Walmart bought Flipkart and it bought the market leader, but Walmart was 20 times larger than Flipkart. We went and bought our industry's Flipkart in a way. And that gave us a pedestal jump and cutting short the building time of a platform like that by more than 5 years. So that kind of gave us a head start in terms of building a large multi-designer platform out of India. And since the acquisition, we have grown the platform 30 times in the last 2 to 3 years.
That's a very interesting development, Abhishek. The other big development of our times, of course, is the pandemic. We're just coming out of a very painful second wave. Hopefully, there'll be no more third or fourth waves after this. But can you tell us about how the habits of the average buyer of designer clothes has changed during the pandemic, and how did this affect your omni-channel strategy?
we are not a retail play as such, like the core business was online, was always online. We bought the platform and it only used to be an e-commerce play. And with a global distribution, like 70% of our business comes from international markets. So the idea of doing offline stores was just to extend the same customer base and giving them a better customer experience by having a store in their city. A typical retail player would expect to have 20 stores, 30 stores in a city like Bombay, Delhi. For us, these are touch points. So if you talk about 30 top cities of the world, we might have only 50 stores in total in the next 3 to 5 years. Today we have only 10. So the idea of online to offline for us goes hand in hand. And in the last 1.5 years, we have played them, relatively better just because of our positioning. So last year when the lockdown happened, like for 3 to 6 months, whole of world was on shutdown. And then India started opening. So that gave us a boost to the business in terms of comeback, even though globally US, UK was still shut. But in the second wave, when India was going through a bad phase, US and UK were much relatively positioned. So actually, in the last 3 months, we have done more online sales than we used to did in the March quarter. So that way, having a geographically wide distribution kind of prevents you from having the nuances related to things like COVID pandemic.
Thanks, Abhishek. So scale and spread definitely has some advantages. Let's talk a little bit
Yes.
about funding now. You've raised multiple rounds of funding from very prominent investors. Can you share some of your lessons around fundraising and how you might tweak your approach in these current times?
So we have always raised money when we needed it. As I told you, we did an acquisition which was fairly large for our size at that time as a company, and we have also grown it fast. So obviously, it needed the right working capital, growth capital, along with the amount for acquisition when you do something like that. What has helped us in the journey, right from our angel round and then the next round and then the next round, we always have added a lot of long-term investors who believe in the broader model of Indian brand equities, luxury, and selling them globally, and also understand the fact that price points like these and businesses like these are averse to usual economic trend out there. Like they are long-term, 100-year long businesses. So as I said, for us, it was always about the investor. It was always about getting the long-term investor. So we might have, I think, close to over 100 investors on a cap table, but all of them add values in their own way, which kind of helps us in growing the company, on a year-to-year basis.
Speaking of finances, Abhishek, one big challenge for many companies during the pandemic has been managing cash flows. How did the
Yeah.
pandemic affect your approach to managing cash flows?
Well, as an e-commerce company, so one thing, we were never a cash burn company as such. I mean, we have always been contribution margin positive. The only burn the company had, for the first 2, 3 years of growth post acquisition was only the head office cost. So when the pandemic happened, we actually took it as an opportunity to clean up our operations further, understand our cost structure ourselves better, and then take the right steps in the approach to make the company EBITDA positive. So we actually became EBITDA positive in July 20. So it's been more than a year. We have been an EBITDA positive on every month basis, and that has helped the company in terms of cash flows. Also, by nature of being e-commerce, we are a negative working capital company. Technically, if your online sales are growing, that itself adds to your cash flows.
Thanks, Abhishek. Speaking of the pandemic, what are some leadership lessons you've had from the pandemic? Any learnings, any takeaways you'd like to share with that audience? How to survive, how to bounce, how to thrive after a pandemic? Abhishek?
So we always, hear people saying that, tragedy is an opportunity, anything, crisis is an opportunity. That's actually true because, when you are doing a hyper growth company, you sometimes don't get the time to go back to, the whiteboard, do all the maths again, and get that breather to take the step ahead. You're always chasing month on month, quarter on quarter, and sometimes you ignore completely the inefficiencies that you build along the journey. So I think that ways, not just for us or startups or larger companies, everybody got time to rework on their cost structures to their revenue streams. And I think everybody who has been smart in this last 18 months of time frame have taken the opportunity to make things more efficient, be it revenue side, be it credit side, be it expenses side. So I think everybody has used the opportunity to their benefit. Yeah, you might have some exceptions where the industry has struggled, because of the pandemic. But I think apart from that, wherever it was average performance or above, all of those companies would come out stronger out of this pandemic. That's for sure.
Those are good insights, Abhishek. One part of finance is fundraising, the other part is spending that money. What are some of your tips or advice to our audience on how to wisely spend your capital in these very difficult, uncertain times?
So I think by that logic, generally, I'm the entrepreneur who sits on the other side of the table. The general mindset is if you have more money, you have more peace of mind and you spend them better. I always feel that when you don't have money, you spend them better. So we as a company have always raised money as much we needed for the short term. And it also kept us frugal in the journey. On the face of it, we might look a very fancy company with fancy offices, fancy stores, luxury. But the reason why we are EBITDA positive is because on the cost side, we are equally frugal. And it stems from the fact that we never had hundreds of crores in bank where we are randomly spending that money out. So I think one advice would be a lot of people believe raising funds is a metric of success. It's never a metric of success. If you're diluting your own company to raise funds, it's a sign of failure for a business because businesses are supposed to generate cash flows, not eat cash flows. So yeah, I mean that way I'm on the other side of the table when it comes to fundraising.
Those are some very good tips there, Abhishek. Since this is a Money Matters show, I have to ask you, what is your relationship with money like? How do you ensure that it grows? What's your connection personally, professionally, maybe philosophically to money?
So for me personally, Madan, like out of college, I worked with Deutsche for 3 years and then started Purple Style Labs and been running it for last 6 years. So as an individual, my only assets are the stake worth in Purple Style Labs, what it is today. But both as the promoter and the management, we have a very simple theory of working in the company where we kind of invest whatever we take out as salary into the equity on a very regular basis, which keeps us building that skin in the game even from a cash perspective. So for us, personal money and professional money are not that different. I think that is something once you have that built into your company, then that gray area between personal and professional money gets separated, which actually helps the company and the confidence of investors as well. Like more than 80% of our investors have invested all 4 rounds with us because they know that the management have a very, very strong skin in the game. So on the face of it, we might look like a very fancy company with fancy office, fancy stores, luxury business. But at the core of it, we are very frugal in nature because our personal money is also into the company. It's not just investor money.
Those are very good frugal practices there, Abhishek. My last question for you is you've worked a lot with bankers, lenders, investors, and so on. As an entrepreneur, what could these institutions, banking, finance, etc., do to better meet your financial needs, your business needs, and so on?
So I think having worked with Indian banking system for the last 6 years since I started the company, one thing I have always been, surprised by the fact that as the lending part of the industry, they still look at the balance sheet and they still look at the profits, whereas they don't look at the cash flows. Like take an example of a company like ours. If I change our business model to buying the stock, having more 10-15% on the margin, so that would sit as asset on the books. Company would have a large asset base to lean for the debt. And then also it will have profitability on the books. But then you have one bad year like COVID and all your profits go for a toss. As opposed to it, we are an asset light company. We hardly buy like more than 5% of stock on an annual revenue basis, which keeps us asset light, keeps us a bit positive, keeps helping us grow 100% year on year. And we are a negative working capital company. So it has very strong cash flows. Now, this is something traditional Indian banking industry will not be able to differentiate when you're doing the lending. So I think that is one thing if Indian banking industry could mature themselves about knowing companies better. I think that would definitely change the ecosystem much more.
Thanks, Abhishek, for your very wide-ranging conversation and inputs for all our audiences. 3 key takeaways for me, I would say, are the 3 Ps: product, platform, perseverance. Make sure you have a very clear product proposition to the audience, to the customers. Number 2, use digital technology to build a great platform across channels. And number 3, persistence right through the pandemic. Make sure you have your handle on finance very clear and a direct line of sight to profit. Thank you so much, Abhishek. We wish you all the best in your journeys ahead.